What's up, scholars? Welcome back to another video. It is time. I have been but kind of avoiding this anime for a long time. Everybody's at least heard of One Piece in the anime community, whether you've watched it or not. And for the longest time, I held out watching. One, when I was like a little kid and I saw it, I didn't think it was something I'd be interested in. And then growing up, I was like, oh, well, there's a lot of episodes, there's a lot of sagas to get through, it might just be too much, so I just kept putting it off. But I saw a lot of people that I follow start to do these reactions to One Piece, whether it be they started watching the anime and going on that journey, or they're starting to read the manga and doing updates on like the manga as they read. And it got to the point where I was like, okay, fine. I get it. I see all the signs. I'm gonna do it. So I finally decided about like a little over a month ago to start my One Piece journey. And what a delight it has been. It has been absolutely wonderful for me since I started this anime. And over on TikTok is where I've kind of been logging my One Piece journey updates, my videos, and the One Piece fandom, like the community, has been so amazing to me. Oh my gosh, the One Piece community is absolutely fantastic. They are amazing, they're so sweet, so kind, so welcoming. It has just been such a thrill being on this journey so far. So with that being said, I decided I kind of wanted to do these videos and talk about my journey through One Piece as I'm going through, and go like saga by saga. Maybe when the sagas are getting bigger and bigger and there's more to talk about, I'll probably break them up into arcs. So we are doing the East Blue Saga today. I was pleasantly surprised with how much I just thoroughly enjoyed the East Blue Saga, the introduction to all these characters, and how the crew kind of forms around Luffy. I don't know, it's been such a crazy ride. It doesn't feel like I've just been watching episode after episodes, because they fly by so quickly. And One Piece is quickly consuming my entire life, and it's become all I've wanted to watch. I don't see an issue with that though. I'm through this saga and the Alabasta saga, and I'm in Skypia right now currently. But I'm going to do this video first, and then there's going to be an Alabasta video coming out afterwards, and then once I'm done with Skypia, I'll do that one as I continue through the arcs. So please, since you'll know kind of where I am, don't leave any spoilers down in the comments or anything, because I'm going into this pretty much not knowing anything. Like, there's a few things like you just hear because One Piece has been around for so long, but I don't know, I practically know nothing about this anime besides what I've already seen. And I want to keep it that way because I want to experience the ride by myself and like have all the emotions. You'll know what I mean. I'm not very articulate today, which is a bummer because I'm filming a video for y'all. But that's besides the point. So we're going to break this down into pretty much island by island or little arc by arc within the East Blue Saga, and talk about those, talk about my first impressions of these characters, who my favorite one is so far, which if y'all follow me on TikTok, y'all already know who my favorite is. But we're going to discuss all of that and what I think of the series so far. So let's go right into this first one, the Romance Dawn arc. So Romance Dawn is pretty much like our introduction to the show. We see Luffy. Luffy's introduction is so hilarious, but so perfect for his character and who he is. It's like the perfect embodiment for the type of carefree, innocent, and just fun-loving guy that he is. Like him showing up in that barrel, Kobe finding him. That whole thing was just pure comedic gold, but it shows just exactly who Luffy is as a character, and I really like that we started off with Luffy being this way, and the continuity of that throughout the series has stayed the same. And I really enjoy the character continuity. It's so nice to see. But yes, we see Luffy, he's on board Alvida's ship by complete accident, but he ends up going to the Navy with Kobe. Yeah, so they arrive on Shell Island with the Marine base, and that's where they meet Zoro chained up because of Helmeppo. I almost forgot his name, I had to look it up. Because of Helmeppo, Captain Morgan's son. And then them going against Helmeppo, Zoro trying to be honorable about the little girl that he defended, and that whole little thing of Luffy just be like, hey, you want to join my crew? I'll help you out if you do. And Zoro at first being like, no, like I'm not going to be a pirate, I'm a pirate hunter. And Luffy just has this charm and charisma about him that he's so persistent, and Zoro just ends up like, okay, fine. Let's go, Captain. It's so cool to see how Zoro is so easily swayed by Luffy's personality and becomes so loyal to Luffy, like right off the back. Like that loyalty, that bond is so instantly snapped into place. It's mind-blowing, but it works. It works for their dynamic because Luffy has complete trust in Zoro already, and Zoro, because he sees Luffy with that complete trust in him, he is able to completely put his life and his trust in Luffy's hands. It's bizarre, but it totally works. I love that. And of course, you know, they beat Captain Morgan and Helmeppo, and Kobe ends up staying behind on Shell Island to join the Navy. And the Navy ends up saluting Luffy and Zoro as they're leaving, which, you know, is against the Navy's code to salute a pirate. But because of what Luffy has done, they broke the rule and saluted them anyways because they know he did a good deed. Which is so cool because that theme carries on throughout the series. The whole theme of they're pirates so they can't be recognized, but some people are going to recognize them anyways despite what it costs them. I love that. It's to kind of skip ahead to the Alabasta, they put it perfectly, the battle that's never told. But that applies all the way back in this first arc, this setup of what these pirates are about. And it's set up that their stories never get told because technically the Marines can't say that the pirates helped them out. I love that bit of storytelling is set up so far in the beginning because it just shows how well thought out this series is. And oh my goodness, Oda is a genius. Genius. But then we move on to Orange Town where we are introduced to Buggy. I did not think I was gonna like Buggy at first because, make it clear, I'm not a huge fan of clowns. Clowns terrify me. So when I saw Buggy, I was really skeptical. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm really not gonna like this person. I'm not gonna like this character. He's gonna be scary. I was pleasantly surprised to be wrong. I adore Buggy. He is the perfect mix of funny. He's such a funny character. And he can be very intimidating because of the lengths he will go to do what he wants. But there's also this charisma that he has with his crew, and you can tell how loyal they are to each other. It's such a really cool dynamic, so I'm so glad we got to meet Buggy this early on in the show. And we're also really introduced to Nami here, where she pretends to be part of Buggy's crew by capturing Luffy, and we see a little bit of Nami's true character here when she won't attack Luffy. She won't light the fuse, or she stops the fuse with her hands because she sees Luffy as innocent, that he hasn't done anything to deserve death. And of course Luffy sees this and is like, hey, you should be part of my crew. And Nami's like, no, you're a pirate. We get a short little battle between Buggy and Luffy, and we get some of Luffy's backstory with the Straw Hat, Mugiwara, with Luffy's Straw Hat, with Shanks, and how he got the hat, why the hat is so special to him, why it means so much to him. And I really love this connection because how special his hat is with the little dog Choo Choo. Yeah, when Buggy's men burn down Choo Choo's owner's house and he's just sitting there barking and barking in front of it, almost brought me to tears. Because Luffy, even though even though Luffy sees, you know, oh, this is a dog, because Luffy has this connection to this hat and he knows how special things can be to people, he sees that kind of kinship with this dog, and so he brings back something from the shop and says, this is all I could find to give to Choo Choo. And then Choo Choo in turn helps Luffy out when they need it. It's such a, like, it seems like such a random moment, but that's who Luffy is, and that's what this whole backstory with Shanks, like, that's what it means to Luffy. Seeing Shanks in that backstory, first of all, oh my gosh, Shanks is a real one. I haven't seen him much throughout the other arcs that I've seen so far, but Shanks is a real one. Sacrificing his arm to save Luffy when Luffy couldn't swim because he ate the devil fruit. It's such a really cool thing. And then Shanks passing on the hat to Luffy, and it just signifies how important that is to him. And that connection that Luffy has to his hat is what really breaks through to Nami and kind of makes her see like, oh, well, he's not your typical pirate. He's not what these other pirates that she's experienced have been like. And it's what draws her to Luffy initially, is saying, oh, I'll repair your hat. I'll fix your hat. We also, in this little arc, we also get a little bit of Buggy and Shanks. I know there has to be so much more to their backstory, but I haven't gotten it yet. But this little bit of their backstory with how Buggy accidentally ended up eating the devil fruit was absolutely hilarious. His little banter friendship with Shanks is so good. I really enjoyed it. Pretty much after that, after we know like their kind of history and why Buggy's never gonna forgive Shanks because Shanks is the reason that he ended up eating the devil fruit, Luffy defeats Buggy and Nami joins the crew and they set off to their next island little adventure, which ends up being Syrup Village. Now Syrup Village is like the first really like longer arc that we get. It's drawn out maybe a little too much, I'm not sure, but this is where we meet Usopp. And from the moment I met Usopp, I knew I related to him on a certain level because he's so realistic about certain things. Like, yes, he's a liar, but the things that he's super realistic about is stuff that I relate to, like the way he's afraid of things, the way he doesn't want to fight against certain people because he knows he's gonna lose. I love Usopp as a character because yes, he could still be afraid, he's still a liar, but when it comes down to it, Usopp is a man's man and he will stand up and fight until his very last breath when it comes down to it. That level of pure determination and grit that he has to fight for who he wants to defend, to fight, to protect, is so amazing, and that's what draws Luffy to Usopp. And Usopp sees that same sort of loyalty in Luffy as they're willing to protect Syrup Village from the pirates, from Django. That's a side story. From Django, from Kuro. And it brings them together. That loyalty, that determination to fight, to protect is what initially draws them together. I love that. And Usopp and Luffy have this shared connection of Shanks because Usopp's father is in Shanks' crew, so Luffy knew Usopp's father, and it's this nice little continuum of the story that everything seems connected together. Just how like Buggy is connected to Shanks, Usopp's father is connected to Shanks, then Luffy's connected to Shanks. It's all circular, and it's a really nice bit of storytelling. I love in this arc with Usopp specifically the way he is known as a liar, but then we get to know why he lies, why he comes up with these grandiose stories and everything, and it's all for Kaya. And it's so sweet why he started doing it, why he went to her all the time to tell these grand stories. Even though she knows that he's lying, she listens to them anyways because she loves to hear his stories. She loves to hear his lies. And going deeper into that later on, we find out why he started lying and calling for pirates being there in the village is because he wanted his father to be home. That's so sad. But I love this little arc with Usopp's introduction because we really start to see the crew start to come together and fight for one another. Nami is still a little bit selfish, and well, not a little, but she's very selfish in this arc, and she like ditches Zoro to go find her treasure because she doesn't want anybody to get her treasure, which come later on it makes so much sense. But like she is still thinking single-mindedly of herself and this treasure. She has a little bit of trouble connecting with the others until she sees Luffy in a spot where he needs help, and then Zoro's in a spot where he needs help, and she risks her own safety to go grab Zoro's swords to help him out. And she goes to wake Luffy up when Luffy is knocked out. You can see the dynamics between them start to shift, and there's this camaraderie between them that continues to grow and grow. And the fight between Captain Kuro and the other pirates really helps solidify that bond together with this initial little group. And I love Kaya. She's such a sweet little character. And I love Usopp and hers relationship. And then of course I was like, this arc is where we get the Going Merry, like the ship that goes through everything in this show. Like, because Mary gifts them, the pirates, a ship for what they've done. And of course, there's this moment where Usopp says, I'm not going to tell anybody what happened. I'm going to pretend like this never happened. Kind of going along with the same thing that happened when Zoro and Luffy left Shell Island of, we're not going to tell anybody that the pirates did this. We're not going to tell anybody the pirates helped. It kind of keeps in line with that same bit of storytelling. But again, only a certain amount of people know what happens, like Kaya and Mary and the kids. Yeah, those 3 kids. I don't remember their names. Is that terrible of me? Usopp joins, and they head on to the next little arc, which is I'm gonna butcher this. How do I say this? To the Barati arc, where they find the ship on the sea that is a restaurant. So at the beginning of the Barati arc, I hope I'm saying that right. If I'm not saying it right, please let me know how to say it down in the comments. In this arc, the Barati arc, we get more of Zoro's backstory. He kind of has this flashback moment where he was growing up with Kuina, how her tragic death led to him wanting to be the best swordsman alive, that he wanted to become stronger for her, wanted to be the best for her, as well as his own ambitions. And it's a really nice addition to Zoro's character, why we see and why we see him striving to be the best swordsman out there. But after this, we get to the ship, the Barati ship, and that is where we meet Sanji. So we are introduced to Sanji because he is just absolutely wrecking Full Body when Full Body is being disrespectful to the chefs, to his food, and Sanji quite literally puts him in his place real quick. And that's his introduction. What a fantastic introduction at that. Basically saying, don't waste food. You insult a cook on the sea, that'll be the last thing you ever do. Remember that. Luffy immediately is drawn to Sanji after, you know, he wrecks Barati's ship and falls and ends up injuring Zeph, owner Zeph. So Luffy's having to do some work for them, or attempting to do some work for them because it's Luffy. And when he sees Sanji, Luffy is just instantly drawn to Sanji. And he's like, hey, you're going to be my cook. You're gonna be a pirate with us. And Sanji's like, no, I'm not. I'm staying here. And Luffy just does not take no for an answer with Sanji. He's like, no, you're coming with us. That little bit of banter, like Luffy's just pure-hearted determination, the way he just, once his mind is set on something, he does not give it up. He does not change his mind. He's just dead set on something. And he saw Sanji, he wanted Sanji to be his cook, and he's like, no, I'm gonna have you as my cook. I'm gonna convince you to be my cook. I love that. And of course, we get the scene with Jin where he comes in, he's starving. Sanji feeds him even though he has no money, because Sanji sees that he really needs the food, that he's starving. So if you're hungry, eat. And so Jin does, and Jin goes back and gets his captain, Krieg, that they had just gotten back from the Grand Line, and they were not in good shape at all. So they all come in wanting food, and they're all eating. And then, of course, it just all goes to chaos afterwards. And as they're fighting, before they get into the fight, we get the very special appearance of Mihawk, which is the greatest swordsman alive. And Zoro sees that Mihawk is there and instantly goes to challenge him and gets bodied. Mihawk destroys Zoro so easily. It's really a reality check for Zoro to see like where his skills are, but it's also, in that moment though, he still gains Mihawk's respect because of Zoro's determination and his perseverance and the way he carries himself as a swordsman. He gains Mihawk's respect enough that Mihawk spares his life and tells him to get stronger, to get better, and to find him again one day. It's such a neat little moment because it connects that backstory we see from Zoro with Kuina and his desire to be the greatest, and then he comes across the greatest swordsman and gets a reality check of how far he still has to go before he can get that title. And then Mihawk just pieces out like that. But after Mihawk's little appearance, then everybody starts fighting. Luffy's fighting against Krieg. Sanji's starting to fight against the other pirates, and that is when we get Sanji's backstory. That is the most depressing backstory, honestly. When we see how Sanji just had this dream of going to the All Blue, but nobody would believe him. They all laughed at him. And then their ship got attacked by pirates, and he starts saying that, no, I'm not going to die here because I'm going to see the All Blue. And he says that in front of Zeph, which the All Blue is Zeph's same dream. Because of that one thing, Zeph ends up saving Sanji's life, and they end up stranded on an island together. And we learn that they were stranded there for 85 days. 85 days. They had run out of food. They barely had any water, if any. And like you could see, like they were just withering away to almost nothing. And when Sanji finally goes to check on Zeph to see if he's still alive, what he thinks was Zeph's bag of food was nothing more than jewels that he had kept. It was gold. And that Zeph hadn't had anything to eat. And that's when he learned that Zeph's leg was gone. And I already had this clarified for me from manga readers that in the manga, Zeph actually ate his own leg to stay alive. But that is when they both get this idea to have a restaurant in the sea so that starving sailors, starving pirates will have a place to go to replenish themselves so nobody else ends up like they did. And it shows so much of who Sanji is, because not only of his connection to Zeph, but why he's so passionate about food, why he doesn't waste food anymore, because he used to before that moment, before he was stranded, and he learned like the importance of food, the importance of not wasting anything, and really more about the importance of life itself. And he feels like he has such a huge debt to owe because Zeph gave up everything for Sanji, and Sanji feels like he owes Zeph everything, like his life, everything, and that's why he doesn't want to leave. But they fight anyway. Sanji does not give up. He fights against Jin, and Jin, because of the kindness that Sanji showed him, he's unable to kill Sanji because he knows Sanji's just a good person, and he refuses to kill the person who saved his life. But then Krieg tries to kill them all anyways with poison gas, but Luffy has absolutely none of that. Luffy comes in and beats Krieg and kind of ends it all right then and there. So after Krieg is defeated, they find out that Nami just, stole the Going Merry and left to go somewhere. And they're like, hey, we figured out where Nami's going. Y'all need to go get her. Now they have to go get their ship while borrowing another one so that they can go find Nami and get the Going Merry back and get Nami back. But before they leave, Luffy again recruits Sanji, and again Sanji tries to say no, but this time all the cooks and Zeph play their cards to get Sanji to leave. And Sanji, once he finally realizes that they're all trying to get him to go off and have a life and to find the All Blue, to discover his own purpose in his life and not just use his life to repay a debt, that's when he finally decides to join Luffy's crew and be a pirate. And that goodbye to Zeph, I cried so much. Hearing Sanji finally say, instead of just like old man or anything like that, like old geezer, he finally says owner Zeph, and he bows and he's crying, thanking him for everything he's done. And then Zeph starts crying, and then the cooks start crying. I started crying. It was such a good moment because it hit so much more after knowing everything they went through. And when Zeph said don't catch cold, that ended my heart. That was a fatal blow. But that kind of finishes up the Barati arc, and that brings them into Arlong Park. And Arlong Park is where I truly started to like Nami's character. I was a little unsure of Nami before this. Like, she didn't get a lot of personalization. Her main thing was she loved money. She loved gold. And in this arc, we discover why. Her whole backstory of why she's part of the Arlong Pirates, why she betrayed Kokoyashi Village, and everything like that. It's so heartbreaking. Her past with being found by Bellemere and taken in, her and her sister being raised by Bellemere, and then them watching her get shot by Arlong whenever Arlong invaded. And then Arlong notices that Nami has a talent for drawing maps. So he takes Nami and pretty much forces her to become a pirate, to draw all the maps and treasure charts of the sea. And Nami makes a bargain with him that if she can collect like 100 million berries, I think that's what it is, yeah. If she can collect so many berries, she can have her free, or she can buy Kokoyashi Village. And it's such a sad arc because we see Nami still trying to put up this facade that she doesn't need anybody's help, that she can do this all by herself, even though she spared Zoro's life and she spared Usopp's life, and she's still acting as if she can do it all. She's fine with the villagers ignoring her. She's fine with how they perceive her because she knows what she's doing is going to end up helping them. So in her mind, it's all okay, even though it's not. But we get Nojiko telling them the story of what happened to Bellemere and why Nami is doing the things she's doing, why she's acting the way she's acting. And Except Luffy walks off because he's not interested in hearing that. He's just wanting to go off and explore. He just wants to find Nami. So Luffy walks away while Nojiko is telling the story, which is such a classic Luffy move. That's when the Navy show up to confiscate all of Nami's berries, all of her gold and her treasure, because she stole it from pirates, so technically it's not hers. And that's when Nami realizes that Arlong was never going to keep his promise, and she goes to confront him, and he basically just belittles her and tears her down. And when Nami comes back, she's facing the village, and this part just broke my heart, where she's just smiling and saying, hey, don't worry, like, it's no big deal. I've been doing this for so long now, like, getting all these berries back is gonna be no big deal. It'll be easy this time, so just wait a little bit longer. And that's when Genzo goes up and he hugs Nami and he said, you've done enough. You don't have to do this anymore. We all know what you've been doing. We know. And you don't have to suffer anymore. You don't have to do this anymore. And that's when they decide, we're going to fight. Even though it would mean their certain death, they were going to go against Arlong and the other fishmen, and they were going to fight. Because then if they were dead, Nami didn't have to feel guilty if she wanted to run away. And of course, Nami wants to stop them, but she can't, and they go along anyways. And then Nami has this massive, massive breakdown, and seeing her screaming Arlong's name as she's stabbing herself in the arm over the tattoo that was forced on her when she joined the pirates, this Arlong tattoo that she has, and she's just stabbing herself over and over and mutilating her skin, until Luffy comes by and he grabs her arm and stops her, and she's crying and she's saying, you don't know anything, you don't know what's going on, you don't know anything, go away. And Luffy's like, you're right, I don't know what's going on. But he doesn't leave, even though she's like throwing dirt at him, she's like screaming at him to leave, but Luffy doesn't budge, he's not going anywhere. And then Nami finally turns to Luffy and asks him to help her. I was bawling like a baby during that part. Oh my gosh, I was crying, because that's such a huge shift in Nami's character and her personality in that moment, that she's done all of this for so long, for so many years, by herself, without anyone's help, without asking anybody for help. She's carried this burden for so long, only on her own, without letting anybody else do anything for her or take away some of the burden. And she asks Luffy, because in the short time that she's known Luffy, there's this loyalty, there's this bond that they share, that she knows she can ask him for help, that she can trust him, and he's going to help her. And that's exactly what he does. When he hears that, he puts his hat, his most prized possession, his straw hat, puts it on Nami for safekeeping, showing that not only he trusts her with that prized possession, but that she is also a treasure to him as well, and he's not gonna want to lose her either. Puts the hat on her and says, of course we will, of course I will. And then the walk that they go, Sanji, Luffy, Usopp, Zoro, when they are walking to Arlong, is such an amazing shot, because they're all so determined to fight just for their crewmate, for Nami. And when Luffy comes in and attacks Arlong, he said, you made our navigator cry. It's such a wonderful and just powerful emotional moment, and I love the fights that go along with it. Usopp getting his own little moment of bravery, of him standing up for himself, but also for Nami and Luffy and Zoro, because he knows Luffy has this trust in him. He knows Luffy is out there fighting, and he knows that they're there to fight for Nami. And even though he wants to run away, even though he started to run away, Usopp ends up standing his ground to take on the fishmen, and he ends up winning, because Usopp is naturally smart, he's scrappy, and he's so quick-witted that he thinks of a way to win, and he does, executes it perfectly. And then Sanji gets his little moment when he's fighting. Zoro gets his moment when he's fighting. But, of course, the star of this battle is Luffy versus Arlong. I love their fight, and I love when they're fighting, they end up breaking up, like, destroying the building that Arlong lives in, their house, and Luffy ends up seeing where Nami had lived, where she had been forced to stay, where she was working. He sees all the charts that she's made. He sees all the progress that she's been doing. And as Arlong is talking, Luffy just becomes angrier and angrier until he breaks everything. He destroys everything in that room. And as he's breaking, as he's tearing things up, shattering things, throwing things are falling out of the window, Nami is there and she sees everything being torn to pieces. Basically, what had shackled her in for so many years was being broken free by Luffy. And she starts crying and she's saying, thank you, Luffy. And it goes to show that Luffy is more than just this goofy character who just acts on his whims. He truly does know and understand the people he is with, the people he loves and trusts the most. He cares about them more than anything, and he understands them and will do anything for them. And of course, Luffy wins. His win against Arlong was so satisfying. And I loved the ending where they beat Arlong and Kokoyashi Village is free from the reign of terror of Arlong. Nami decides to, one, get a new tattoo, which is significant of Belmere and Ginzo, but also she goes along and truthfully, wholeheartedly joins Luffy's crew as their navigator. And the goodbye in Kokoyashi was fun, and it was bittersweet to see her leave. And she got some of Belmere's trees on the Going Merry to take with her. That ending was so sweet, and it was so worth it seeing Nami's character and how she developed throughout that arc, and we just truly discovered why she was the way she was. From there on out, then we had like a little like side quest with Buggy. We had like a little I think it was like 2 episodes with Buggy of his little adventures and how he ends up teaming up with Alvida, which was hilarious and super, super enjoyable. But then we get to the Logtown arc. I may be a little biased, but I love the Logtown arc because we get introduced to Smoker. Smoker is my favorite Marine so far, and I love his way of doing things, his own morality, his justice, and saying to follow your own sense of justice. And we get introduced to him. We get introduced to Tashigi, when Zoro runs into her, and he is reminded of Kuina like off the bat. So we have that interesting connection between them and how he ends up buying his swords and she doesn't realize who he is. Actually, okay, so I skipped ahead a little bit. So after the Arlong Park arc is where Luffy gets his first bounty of 30 million berries because he beat Arlong, like he had beaten Buggy once, and he defeated Krieg. Because of those, after Arlong Park, Luffy is now a wanted pirate with a bounty on his head. I shouldn't be so happy about that, but I really am. But yeah, so that brings us back to Logtown when Smoker finds out that Luffy has a bounty on his head. And so he's like, alright, time to take down the Straw Hat. I don't know why, I love it when people go up to fight against Luffy and they call him Straw Hat, like Mugiwara. It's just so satisfying for some reason. But that's besides the point. But then we get like this huge, like, little side adventures kind of. Like Usopp faces off against Daddy with like the sniper competition and he wins. Sanji ends up cooking against Carmen, and Zoro of course is off buying his swords and everything. But then we get into some trouble when Luffy is going to the execution site of Goldie Roger, where that is where Goldie Roger, the former king of the pirates, had been executed, where he gave his grand speech about the One Piece and set off this age of pirates. And Luffy, of course, would want to visit this place because he has this ultimate dream of being the king of the pirates. So of course he would want to see where the former king of the pirates was. So of course Luffy is off in the execution area, and that is when Buggy and Alvida come back to try to defeat Luffy to get some revenge. It just becomes chaos all too quick, where Luffy ends up trapped on the execution dais like Goldie Rogers was, and Luffy, in the face of dying, while his crew is like, oh my gosh, Luffy smiles in the face of death. He's just like, sorry guys, guess I'm dead. He wasn't worried for a minute. He was okay with welcoming death, and that gave this premonition to Smoker that reminded him of Goldie Roger. It's the coolest thing. I love the parallel. And of course, you know, Luffy gets free. They're all fighting against the Marines, who are now trying to capture Luffy and his gang, but also Buggy and Alvida. So everything is just super chaotic, but Luffy and them are trying to escape. He's trying to fight off against Smoker. Smoker obviously has the upper hand until Luffy gets some assistance from this mysterious dragon person, who I still have not met yet anywhere else. He's very much a mystery. But Luffy gets some assistance from him, and then Dragon just disappears, and Smoker's like, looks like fate is with Luffy. It's so cool. I really like that because it sets up so much for what you can do in the future of One Piece that I haven't got to yet. Ugh. But, of course, they get back to their ship and they escape. Pretty much, I know there was like a filler arc in there with like that dragon that was trying to go home and like that little side story. But yeah, that was pretty much it. And then they were off to the Grand Line. And that is pretty much the East Blue Saga. And oh my goodness, that saga, for an opening saga of like, I don't know how many episodes it was, like 70 something episodes, was a solid start. Like, it was really good. It didn't take too long. The introduction to all the characters were fantastic. I loved how they handled the characters' backstories and how this found family group just really came together so naturally and so bizarrely. Like, you wouldn't think it works, but it works so well. I love all of the characters. There's not one I don't love. I love them all. My favorite so far is Sanji. I love Sanji. He is such a cool character, and I really, really enjoy him. But I love all of them. I don't know if I could rank them all, but Sanji is my number one. This saga was so cool because it really is just like the very tip of the iceberg, like the very beginning. I didn't expect them to get to the Grand Line so early. I thought that would take like a couple hundred episodes to get to, but I was pleasantly surprised but confused to find out that they were getting to the Grand Line so early in the show. But now that I'm a little further into the show, I understand why, and I love that. It makes it feel like you've accomplished a goal so early, but it literally is just like the tip of the iceberg. You're like, oh, boom, I got it, we got it done. But it's like, no, there's so much more out there that you have no idea about. And that's where like this journey really starts to take place. So this saga was really just like a setup for the rest of the show, but it was set up so well with just enough like foreshadowing, just enough backstory on the characters and like some of their connections with some villains and some antagonists. I would say Smoker is more an antagonist. He's definitely not a villain, but he's an antagonist to our main characters, our group, because he's a Marine, they're a pirate, or they're pirates, so he's more an antagonist. Buggy is kind of a villain, but kind of an antagonist. I'm not really sure where he falls on the spectrum yet, but he's definitely there, and he's definitely coming back. He's making other appearances. It's really interesting that we've had like 4 or 5 arcs within one saga that feels so complete, but it's still like they're complete, but it's just the beginning. And it's so interesting how Oda does this, that he can make something seem like it's been completed, but you still have so much left to uncover and so much left to do, that just because you completed something, it doesn't mean it's over. It doesn't mean you're never going to see any of these characters again. Because like I thought Alvito was a throwaway character when I saw her in episode 1, and she made an appearance back in Logtown, and I was not expecting that at all. Like none of these characters are gone for good. Like we even got a little bit of like Kobe and Helmeppo out of nowhere. So it's like, or that might be the next saga. But it's like none of these characters are throwaway characters, and it makes me believe that everything is going to be so connected in the future, and that getting to the Grand Line, and as mysterious as the Grand Line is, you don't know what to expect there. I love that aspect of it, but this video is already super long and super drawn out, so I'll wrap it up. This first saga for One Piece was amazing. I truly enjoyed it. I cried twice, really cried twice. One with Sanji, one with Nami. I love the characters, I love the characterization, and I love the storyline. The storyline in One Piece is so solid, but it's easy to follow, but there's enough to it that it's still complex, and there's still a lot going on, and there's still a lot to be seen and be told and to figure out along the way. It just makes the journey so enjoyable. But my favorite little trope in One Piece so far is found family. Found family is such a special trope to me. I love it so much, whether it be in books or movies or shows. I love found family, and this show does it so perfectly. That is my review of the East Blue Saga. I will be doing the Alabasta Saga next. Oh my gosh, that one's a doozy. But I hope you've enjoyed this review of the East Blue Saga. Let me know what you think of it down below, what your favorite parts of this saga was, whether you were like engaged with the storytelling and the characters first off, just like I was. All of that. Let me know your thoughts down below. Just don't put spoilers in there, because I really am trying to avoid spoilers at all costs. But that is all for this video. Thank y'all so much for sticking with me, and I will see y'all in the next one. Bye!